I'm Robert.
And I'm Evelyn.
And this is Token About It.
And we wanted to just start off this episode by saying sorry about the technical difficulties we had.
We had some problems with it being posted. We had some problems with what was posted not being the whole file.
Yeah, it was just I'm not entirely sure what went wrong, but it wasn't properly uploaded through our hosting platform. And that's why it didn't get published the way it should have. So sorry for the apparent delay that we had.
Yes, we apologize.
Though it was exciting because the last two episodes was our second anniversary.
Yeah.
So I want to be happy, but that also means it's the second anniversary of the pandemic.
That's true.
Which means Discord is still only $1.
Yay! All right. So, what was the title of last month?
So it's been a little bit since we recorded because of all these crazy things. So last time we talked about Journey to the Crossroads, and then this chapter is the Stairs of Cirith Ungol. Am I pronouncing that right?
Ungol, yep.
Ungol, okay. So I had predictions.
Yes, and what are your predictions for this time?
I know, because I wrote them down. I know, right?
First sign of the apocalypse.
All right, so my first prediction is someone's going to fall down some stairs. That was my first prediction.
Okay.
My second prediction was all of the action on the chapter takes place on the stairs.
Okay.
And then my third one, which you approved, was Sam threatens Gollum. And my reasoning for that is he threatens Gollum, but he doesn't do anything about it. All right, so...
But what happened? What about your predictions? Did they happen or not?
Well, let's find out.
Okie dokie. So, the chapter we're looking at is Stairs of Cirith Ungol.
Now, I was going to ask what Cirith Ungol, does that mean anything specific, or is that just another place in this lake area?
It does mean something, but I don't want to tell you what it means.
Okay.
Because it leads up to the next chapter.
Oh, okay, that's suspicious.
But I can tell you that Cirith Duran, which is what it was originally called, means Shadow Cliff.
Okay.
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 And most men of Gondor had built this huge tower that they called Cirith Ungol. So that's enough back information.
Oh, okay.
For you now.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. Okay.
So what? So
it starts immediately after the next chapter, where Gollum is rushing them. They are really being rushed because even Gollum doesn't like this place. It's scary, it's bad, it's no good. And as Gollum is trying to rush them, Frodo looks towards the west and then faces the east. And I was wondering, I was going to look this up and then I totally forgot, so maybe we'll put this somewhere else, but for the west versus the east, is that something an Anglo-Saxon thing? Is that a Christian thing that symbolizes? Is it just like Western culture versus Eastern culture and it gets a little racist vibes? Like, what is it?
Well, east is the end of the church where the altar's supposed to be.
Okay.
All right. I mean, that's pretty much very specific of especially Roman Catholic churches, because the east represents the new day. The sun reminds us of the rising of Christ.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So they continue, and Frodo is really feeling his burden, and they use the word burden a lot, which I'm assuming means the ring. And the ring itself is growing heavy, and the burden is growing heavy. And I really liked the wording of it, because to me, it comes off like it's both the ring itself is growing heavy, which we know it can do, with its magical properties, but also just mentally, it feels like Frodo is being burdened more and more with what he has to do and what he has to go through to get there.
Right, yeah. It talks about both Frodo and Sam having heavy hearts, and that, like you said, Frodo is being dragged down.
Yeah. They're dragging me after a long day at work.
Okay. And so where they are in part of this chapter, or what they're reminding themselves of part of this chapter, is Minas Morgul, and it's absolutely all darkness there.
Yes, I wrote that down. They're all in awe of it. And I know Minas Morgul used to be called something else. What
I
was it?
didn't write it down, so I don't remember.
Oh, whoops. Well, I know that Minas Morgul it's supposed to be the city of the ring wraiths, right?
Yes.
And that's something that we kind of see. And they describe it as a rottenness in the air. And just the entire description in this whole thing, I don't want to read it because it's so long, but the entire description, it's paragraphs of just this rottenness, this darkness,
Yeah.
this despair. And it really gave me like anxiety myself. Like, oh my God, this is crazy how terrible this all is.
Right. And it's also interesting because it does talk about how parts of it is lit with light, but the light does not really illuminate anything.
Right. And then Frodo just kind of pieces out at one point. He starts to kind of just go go in a certain direction, and Sam and Gollum had to like physically restrain him and be like, no, you're going the wrong way. Was that the ring being called to the ring wraiths, or was that the ring trying to influence him, or was he just in a daze? Was it his connection to the Witch King?
I think it's a combination of all three,
Okay.
actually, because I think he could have fought off one of them and maybe two of them, but
But
also,
all of them
yeah,
are probably.
but also going back to the light in the darkness area. So from my perspective, sometimes a candle lit in the dark does not illuminate your path. It is not always a light that is on, and it's not always a light that guides your feet, but it is a guidepost that you can center on and make your way toward.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So
as this is happening, Gollum is still leading them, and I wanted to read this quote because I just found it just so interesting. Gollum says wrong way and he starts moving and he's quote so Gollum says wrong way and he starts to quote crawling on the ground like a frightened animal was already vanishing into the gloom, end quote. And I don't know why I love that sentence so much, but it really captured Gollum.
right, and also at this point, Gollum knows what he's getting close to, and so he's taking a low profile,
Okay.
and he might even be trying. He might even be trying to put some space between him and the noisemakers.
This is really making me nervous for the next chapter.
So, but but it's also interesting that the bridge that they cross remains white.
Okay.
And it also interesting enough, Gollum does not mention the name of it. Um,
That is interesting, especially for Tolkien.
yeah, and one of the things I giggled to myself about is the smell. I'm thinking about well, it can be worse. It can be raining. Well, now it can be worse. It can smell of decaying bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Sam and Frodo are now following Gollum as well. And again, the quote is they are deadly tired. And I felt that that was a very important turn of phrase for where they are.
I like the idea that they're walking as if the darkness can suck away any memory of color. I love that wording too.
Yeah.
But their senses are becoming duller, um, and there's something that seems to be a never ending pull at their souls. So, but then at a point, Gollum leaves them.
Yes. Gollum leaves them right as they are starting to see this massive army come up.
Right.
And they see one of the ring wraiths with a crown on him, and he's called the Witch King, right?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Witch King was another one, but okay. So they see the king of the ring wraith, or is he the king of the ring wraith, or is he just a king that is a ring wraith?
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Um, so they see him, and he kind of suddenly stops as he's leading the army, almost like he senses the ring, and everyone, including myself, is just holding their breath until he starts to ride away, and that was so nerve-wracking for me.
So yeah, it makes you nervous a little bit.
Yeah.
Now that you're invested this far.
I am very invested. I honestly did not think I would get as invested into this story as I am. And you listeners and dad, you know that like the beginning was a little rough for me, but I am fully invested. I am like, what is happening? I can't help but to think, what is happening to Merry and Pippin right now, and Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli? Like, I'm like missing them and everything.
Right. Now, again, to lighten this up just a little bit, something that gave me a little giggle. When Gollum went off on his own, and Sam, with his best impression of General Akbar, it's a trap.
Yeah, and Frodo really worries about Faramir here.
Yes, because now
Yeah.
that he's seeing the number of creatures heading out.
And as they're passing and leaving and they seem not to notice them, Gollum very warily warns them that the danger has not passed.
Yeah.
And again, it makes me nervous about what's to come.
Right. But as they continue in this darkness, Sam has this blackness of despair and anger in his heart. And somehow in there he sees a light in his mind. And it reminds him the light that Gladriel gave to Frodo.
Okay.
So, and remember what the light is? It was the light from one of the stars.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so, so, remind us what was happening when they started climbing the stairs.
So they start to climb the stairs now. So my predictions have been very, very wrong this chapter. They finally start to climb these stairs, and these are terrifying stairs.
Right.
Like some of the steps are cut out of stone, and it's just going to be a hard no for me. Like I'm not a fan of cliffs, of edges, of like things without handrails, heights, just none of it's for me.
Yeah, and a large part of those stairs are, remember, they're carved into the cliff side.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's terrifying to me. And
And
it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up, and no, I it gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
yeah, and this is where Lucas gets the idea of not putting handrails up.
So as they're climbing, they're starting to get a little bit towards the end of the stair of this huge staircase, and they see the tower. And this tower is always watching. And I immediately thought of Monsters Inc., the slug lady, where she's like, I'm watching you, always watching, which is a terrible impression. But that's immediately what I thought it was her.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't understand either. And going back to when the Lich King and the horsemen were taking off.
Lich King? Witch King? Though,
Lich.
could we argue he's a lich?
I want to go back to when the Witch King is taking off on horseback with others. Uh, this ringwraith is wearing a helm. Earlier, you asked about him being a witch king or being a king.
Yeah.
And
So what makes him a witch then? Or is that spoilers?
that goes back into some other stuff, and I don't remember if we cover it in this book or not.
Okay, so we'll
But
cover it in future stuff then.
But remember, the 9 rings for humans were given to people who were seeking power.
Oh, I thought it was just people with power already.
Well,
or I guess people with power that want more power.
Yeah, more power. Yeah, people with power want more power.
Yeah, that's true.
I have the power.
Lovely. But yeah, so he's wait, so if he's the king, I just assumed the rings for the other men were given to other kings, or no? Is it just high powerful people? Or is he like the king of kings kind of thing? Is he Jesus?
I'm gonna slap you. He was a recognized king of a large area.
Okay.
So like I said, we can get into all this
he
later
was
on.
like a king of like the equivalent of England versus like ancient Germany where it was smaller cities that had kings.
I would think it'd be more like the Holy Roman Empire. And then you have all these kingdoms underneath you.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that helps me.
Yeah, I think more about that.
That helps me a lot. Okay, cool. Cool.
And then
So, after they're finished climbing the stairs, Frodo and Sam really need to eat and drink and rest. And Gollum kind of disappears again, and Sam again calls his distrust of him. And they rest a little bit, and Gollum returns. And this is probably one of my favorite Gollum moments now, where it really humanizes, or I guess hobbitizes him, where
it wasn't funny the first time.
it's funny to me. Anyway, plus I feel like that is linguistically correct. They're not humans, they're hobbits. So he's hobbitized. Anyway, so we see this change in writing from Tolkien about Gollum, where as Frodo's sleeping, Gollum tenderly lays a hand on his knee. And Sam really sees, instead of this like grotesque, potentially evil, foul creature, we see a kind of a gnarled old man who's been through a lot. And to me, that was really interesting because we finally see Gollum in a different kind of light that perhaps Gandalf has seen, where Gandalf kind of knew a little bit about Gollum and his background, and we really see that background here where maybe there is some hope for Gollum, maybe there is some redeeming qualities to him, maybe we do see this creature that has been through so much and those things have transformed him. He's been taken advantage of by the ring, by his precious. He's basically a victim that has been turned mentally and physically into what he is now. I just love it. I love the writing. I'm obsessed with this paragraph.
Yeah, I mean he can turn a phrase.
Yeah.
He really can.
This whole chapter might be one of my favorite chapters so far, just because of like the pure imagery and the anxiety around the area, and then with Gollum, this might be one of my favorite chapters so far,
Yeah,
honestly.
Right, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
No relation. So I just finished reading a book about. It's called The Hobbit. It's called A Hobbit, a Wardrobe in the Great War, and it talks about how the Great War shaped their Lewis's and Token's writings.
Right.
Also, how it got them together as friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true for this chapter, but they edited each other's work.
Okay.
Or they gave approval or disapproval or suggestions of each other's work.
Right.
And so when you talk about how these wonderful terms, phrases, and how well certain parts are written, I can't help but wonder
if C.S. Lewis or his other Inkling friends really helped him.
Or, well, actually, what I was thinking is, so they've been doing this for so long. He's thinking, this is what they're going to say, so let me put it in now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, I like that. And that's a book that we've been chatting on and off about since you've started reading it, and that's something that we will be doing bonus content on. Because it is a really interesting read. I just am not going to read it personally because I don't want any spoilers for anything. But after we read, I'll probably read it because it sounds really interesting. And that's the end of the chapter.
Right. Well, yeah, it's the end of the chapter, but I want to go back to something else really quick.
Okay.
How Frodo and Sam are talking about how further generations are going to talk about them.
Okay.
I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And even Frodo's like, oh no, they're not going to talk about me. They're going to talk about you. And which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, Sam's the real hero.
Yes.
Of all this.
I know you think that, and I'm starting to see that a little bit. So I'm curious to keep reading that and seeing where you're coming from that. But yeah, so that was the last chapter.
That was the last chapter, and
so the next chapter is Shelob's. How do you pronounce that? Shelob's lair, and
you know what Shelob means?
I don't know what it means.
Spider.
Okay. Well, I was going to predict that Shelob is a spider. So, I guess I'm right. That's an automatic point for me. Because I wrote it down. I want proof. Dad, I want verbal confirmation that I wrote these before you told me anything.
Spider and web.
Well, no, don't read it. I'll read them in a second. But I wrote them before you said anything, right?
Thank you.
You did, correct?
Correctamundo.
Okay. So my first prediction was that
Shelob...
Shelob...
really pretty teal color ink.
I like colors. So I predicted that Shelob was a spider because that really made me think. I feel like I've heard the name before, and I feel like it was related to a spider. And now I know I'm right. And I'm going to predict that the spider is going to try to eat them all, just like in The Hobbit. And I'm going to predict that Sam saves the day.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it for predictions. Before we go, I wanted to do a shout out. I want to do a shout out to one of the clients at work. You know who you are. You have the beautiful cats, Mary and Treebeard. And she actually listened to our podcast.
Oh, fantastic.
I was absolutely shocked to get her email at work where she's like, by the way, congratulations on your 2nd anniversary. And I was shaken.
That's cool.
So that was really neat. So I just wanted to do a shout out to you. I love your cats. She has the cats that are in the stroller that are really well behaved that I talk about. So yeah, hi.
I've been Robert.
And I've been Evelyn.
And you've been listening to Talking About It. All right, have fun.